Hello everyone, welcome back. In today's video, we are going to be talking about money and student loans. My mindset about money and student loans has drastically changed. I'm here to give you an update. I'm here to tell you how I'm feeling about my student loans, what my student loan balance is, how I'm approaching the payback of these student loans, and how I'm approaching life in general and how I'm viewing money. Because there's a lot to learn about money and how to spend it and how to save it. Let's just chat a little bit about that. To get started, let's first talk about what my student loan debt is. So I have close to around $400,000 in student loans. Yes, I know that's a lot, but I'm actually not too worried about it. I'm actually okay with it, which is weird and different compared to how I was 4 years ago, because 4 years ago I was stressed about my student loans. I had no idea how I was going to pay them off, but now I've learned a lot more. I've learned that student loans aren't everything, and it's just one of the things that you have to do in life, like one of the payments that you have to make, such as like a car payment. You have to make a car payment, you have to make a cell phone payment. A student loan payment is just another payment you have to make. Majority of my student loans are federal loans. So I have around $340,000 in federal loans, and then the rest is in private loans. So let's talk a little bit about the private loans. The reason why I have private loans, although the balance isn't that high, is because I refinanced my student loans in dental school. So at the time, I thought refinancing my student loans was the best idea because my interest rate was going to be lower, and I had this mindset to pay back my student loans as fast as possible because I would save money on interest. But now that I'm growing and getting wiser and older, I'm learning that student loans really aren't everything. So my money could be better spent elsewhere. So I took the risk of refinancing my student loans in dental school, and that's okay. I don't think it was the worst financial decision. It's just a decision that I made. But if I didn't refinance my loans, I could have spent that money elsewhere. In dental school, COVID-19 happened and there was a huge interest freeze. So if I just had my student loans in the federal system, I wouldn't have been paying interest anyways. I can't predict the future. I didn't know COVID was going to happen. But now I'm learning that if I keep my loans in the federal system, there are more options. So that's why majority of my loans, like $350,000 worth of student loans, are federal loans, and I haven't decided if I'm going to refinance those just yet because I have to figure out what my other financial goals are. But in the meantime, with my private loans, I'm making monthly payments, which I can afford, and it's fine. So it wasn't the worst financial decision, and you live and you learn. So the payments that I make towards my student loans currently is around $400 a month. And previously in dental school, when I first refinanced them, the payments were around $1,000 a month. So it was an insanely high payment, but I kept refinancing my loans to a lower interest rate. And then I even refinanced the loans to make it a longer term. So my monthly payment would be smaller once I realized that I should be spending my money elsewhere as well. That's why my monthly payment right now is so low. My monthly payment for my federal student loans is currently $0 because this year I was getting my master's degree, so I was technically still a student, and I will technically be a student for the next 2 years because I will be in orthodontic residency, so I won't be making any payments towards my federal loans. But they may still be accruing interest. That's just the sad reality of it, and it does hurt me a little knowing that they're accruing so much interest, but it's okay. I just have to tell myself there are bigger goals and I could use my money elsewhere. Luck and risk are both the reality that every outcome in life is guided by forces other than individual effort. They are so similar that you cannot believe in one without equally respecting the other. So this is a quote by Morgan Housel, the author of The Psychology of Money. Basically, the reason why I wanted to mention this was because I took a risk with refinancing my student loans. I'm also taking a risk with now not paying back my student loans while I'm in ortho residency because I want to use the money elsewhere. I can't plan for everything. Although I have all these goals, I don't know what life is going to throw at me. I'm hoping I get lucky. So now that I'm working as a dentist, actually I'm not working anymore. Now that I had the experience of working as a dentist, I experienced having money for the first time, and I really had to think, what was I going to do with this money? So at first I wanted to spend it on my student loans because that's what I was used to. But no, I had to spend it on things that made more sense, which are saving for an emergency fund, investing in retirement. So I did all those things. I started an emergency fund and put money in a savings account, a high yield savings account. I also saved for retirement in a 401k. I also opened up an HSA and a traditional brokerage account. I put money in there as well. So I did all of the saving things. Keep that in mind, because when you get your first job, everyone thinks about and spends money differently. So I don't know how you're going to think about money or how you're going to spend it. But when I first got money for the first time, like real dentist money, I saved it. But then I also had to learn how to spend money. And this has actually been like a little bit hard for me because I was never used to spending money, especially on myself. So it was an interesting journey this year because and a nice journey because I got to spend money on myself for once. And it was hard to not spend it on my student loans because my mind previously was so set on paying back my student loans. But really, student loans aren't everything. It's just another bill you have to pay. So you can get more out of life by spending it on other things, and you'll still live a good life and you won't be in debt as long as you can afford your student loan payments. So when you're in dental school, and when I was in dental school, I always heard people say to live like a resident once you graduate. I definitely did not take that advice. I definitely did not live like a resident, and I'm not mad about that at all. And I think I made really good money choices, and I'm going to give you the other perspective, or I'm going to give you the option to not live like a resident because I think you'll still be okay. And this is very like untraditional of me to do because I've lived frugally majority of my life, and I told myself 4 years ago that I was not going to buy a new car because it didn't make sense and I was going to live like a resident. But here I am, enjoying my best life, not living like a resident. I really don't think it was the worst financial decision. And the reason why I don't think it was the worst financial decision is because I still saved my money. I still put it into all the retirement accounts. I opened up an IRA, all the HSA, the brokerage account. I saved a lot of money, but I still decided that I wanted to treat myself. I did decide to buy a car right after graduating. Well, actually, I graduated in 2022 and I bought my car last year in 2024. So it wasn't right after graduating, but I did buy my dream car, which is a Tesla. And I love that car. It makes me happy to drive it every single time, and I would drive it to work every day, and I was literally so happy driving it. And I didn't realize how happy like a materialistic thing would make me feel, but I like a heated seat. It's just nice to have nice things, and when you can afford it, you should do it because you worked really hard to be able to afford these things. But one thing I do want to say about the car is I did look into other options and I did test drive other cars. Another thing I want to say about the car is that I financed the car, which is interesting because I never thought I would finance a car. In the past, like 5 years ago, the way I was thinking about money and especially cars was I would tell myself, okay, no, I need to save up for the entire purchase of the car because I don't want to pay interest. But I got a really good deal with Tesla, and the interest rate that they were giving me was around 1%, which is a really good interest rate because that's a lower interest rate than my student loans. So that means if I finance my car, I'm paying less money on interest rate for the car than I am on my student loans. And I can use my money elsewhere, such as saving it and investing it for something in the future that can make me more money. So that's something that I decided to do. I finance my car and I'm paying it off every month. It's something that I can afford. And instead of putting all that money towards the car, I can put it in a high yield savings account, make more money from the savings account than I would if I just spent it on the car. I think it's because I have a good credit score. So if you're watching this as a dental student and don't have a credit card, this is your sign to get a credit card because credit is really important, and you'll need it for purchasing a car, for purchasing a house, for purchasing a dental practice in the future. I also decided to spend my money on other things this year, such as vacations. I took multiple vacations this year, which included going to New York City multiple times, Miami. I took my honeymoon trip to Italy, and we also went to Barcelona. So that was lovely, and I don't regret spending any money on any of those things because I had a fantastic time. I think what changed my mindset about this is a book that I read a couple years ago, and I've reread it. It's called I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi. And he also has another book called Money for Couples, which is nice too, but I like the first book a lot more. And it really changed my mindset about spending my money. In his book, he talks about spending money on what you love, and I love my car, so I decided to spend money on that. Now let's talk a little bit about goals and what I'm saving for. So if I'm putting all this money aside, it must be for something, right? Because money, if the money just sits there, well, it's going to grow, but for what? Eventually, I do want to buy a dental practice, an orthodontic practice, since I'm going to be an orthodontist in 2 years. So that is the goal. So I've been learning a lot about how to open up a dental practice, whether it's doing an acquisition or doing a startup. So there's pros and cons to both. I feel like with acquisitions, I feel like you have to be in the right place at the right time and know the right people and have the right amount of money to purchase it. That would be ideal if I couldn't acquire a practice. If I can't acquire a practice in the right place at the right time, then I am considering doing a startup, even though I know there's risks to it. If I think about what I want in life, I've always wanted to be my own boss. I know that deep down I'm not going to stay an associate forever, but I am willing to work as an associate orthodontist for a couple years to get experience and to become really good and to learn the business side of ortho practices as well. I have been having some lunch and some outings with some orthodontists, and I have been picking their brains a little bit about practice ownership. So I've been learning that you should save around 7 to 10% of what the practice value is, and you should have that in liquid cash. For example, if a practice is around $1 million and you want to acquire that practice and buy, let's just use 10%. So you want to have $100,000 saved in a savings account. So in liquid cash. So when you go to the bank to get a bank loan, they need to be able to see that you have at least 10%, the $100,000 in your bank account. Now, I'm not exactly sure if you can have it in a 401k. I'm assuming that you can't because that's not liquid. Actually, you can't because it's not liquid. So that answers my question. But I'm not completely sure if you can have it in a brokerage account, like for example, in stocks, because technically you could just sell those and that would make it liquid. So that's something I'm not sure about. Ideally, you would have it in a high yield savings account, just sitting there so you can use it whenever you want. But the interesting thing that I didn't know was you just have to show them the money. You don't have to use it. You just have to show them that you have at least 10%, so that you at least just have $100,000 in the bank for the bank to give you a bank loan to purchase the entire practice. You may sometimes have to put a down payment, but I have heard that sometimes they can finance the entire thing. That's very good for dentists and orthodontists because it seems like it's not too difficult to open up a practice, at least financially speaking. I need to make $100,000 basically and have that in my bank. So that's my goal. Working this year, I've been saving up money and putting it aside for the future goal of having my own practice. And then once I graduate, I will be doing that as well, putting money aside so I can get a bank loan to open up a practice. There's multiple reasons why I want to open up my own practice, but one of the reasons is because I want to be my own boss and I can make decisions on my own and I can grow it the way I want it to grow. It also makes the most financial sense to have your own practice because you can make a lot more money. And at the beginning of this video, I talked about how much student loan debt I have. Almost $400,000 in student loans. If I'm working as an associate, if I'm only making $180,000, $200,000, maybe even like $250,000 a year, I still have to make my student loan payments. I still have to make my car payment. I still have to make like my mortgage payment if I had a mortgage to pay or rent. In order to be able to afford my loan payment, I think the best option is just to wait until I have a practice and pay my student loans aggressively once I do have a practice. So that's just one option. If that option doesn't doesn't work out the way I want it to, then another option is to pay my loans using 10% of my income with repayment plans, which are always available. There's many options to pay back your student loans, so really don't stress out about that and try to focus on saving money to buy a practice, saving for retirement, saving for the future. I think that your money will be more well spent on those things. Okay, and the last thing I'm going to talk about is related to thinking about the future life that you want to live. I've really been thinking a lot about the type of life that I want to live, where I want to live, how I want my life to look like. And currently I'm living in Rochester, New York, and I've been missing the sun so much. So one of the things that I decided is that I want to move back to Southern California because I miss the sun and the sun makes me happy. And I didn't think it was a big deal until, well, I moved to the East Coast. I've been on the East Coast for the past 3 years, and I've experienced real winters. And this last winter in Rochester was just way too long. It was snowing mid-April. That's when I made the decision I can't live in a place that has snow, at least long term, because I just miss the sun. I made the decision that living in Southern California is one of my priorities. One, because it's usually sunny there and the weather's nice, and two, because my friends and family are from there and I miss them a lot. And now that I'm getting older, I've been thinking about, like, what's the purpose of life? What do I want in life? And my main priority in life is to have a family and have a network of friends that I can share my experiences with. So if I'm super far away in Rochester, New York, that's just not the type of life that I want to live. And yes, you can probably say you can make friends anywhere, and I have made friends here, but majority of my friends and family are in Southern California. And eventually, one day, I do want to have a family of my own, and it would just be easier if I was around other family. So lastly, if you do have money, be grateful for it, because not everyone does, and money really is power. Money can buy you out of trouble. It can buy you time. It does not buy you happiness, but it could buy you things that make you a lot happier, such as living in a sunny place in Southern California, or a dog. My dog brings me so much happiness. Be grateful for that. Also, be grateful for your health, because not everyone has good health. So invest in your health. That's another thing that I've been doing a lot this year. I'm curious what your financial goals are and how you're feeling about student loans. So if you are open to sharing that, please leave some information about your student loans or how you're feeling about it in the comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one.